Hello, everybody. Welcome to the fortnightly Backdrop users group meeting. Uh, we meet every 2 weeks on Thursdays at this time, which is noon Pacific time. Um, and we start off with introductions, and I'll just dive right into that. My name is Luke McCormick. I live in San Ramon, California. Like we found as sell ear on various things, on various channels. And I'm a web project manager, business analyst. And I call the next person, I'll go with, say, Tim.
I'm Tim Erickson. I'm St. Paul Tim, and I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota. And we'll leave it at that. Olaf.
Hi, I'm Olaf from Hamburg in Germany. I'm a backdrop site architect, let's say. And you'll find me in the internet with the handle Olafsky. The next one, Izzy.
Hi, I'm Izzy. I'm also known as Ismies on the net. I like Drupal, but I like Backdrop a lot more. So, I should call on someone else, Nate.
You should. Yep.
Thanks, Izzy. I'm Nate Lampton. I'm Quick Sketch on the internet. I'm core commander and technical lead for the project, and I'm going to be showing CKEditor stuff today. And I'm from Oakland, California. We'll go to Justin.
Hi, I'm Justin Kaiser. I am a developer in Muncie, Indiana. Work for a nonprofit using Drupal Backdrop and WordPress, and thinking about CKEditor updates on a lot of sites right now.
I think Martin is the last one.
Hello, I'm Martin Price. I'm a web developer in Northeast England, United Kingdom. I've been using Backdrop for a couple of years now. So.
Okay. So I'll jump in here. Our topic today is to talk about the CKEditor 4 to 5 upgrade, and then probably talk a little bit about the one alternative that we have, or the most talked about alternative, Tiny MCE. If we got some time, we'll do a demo of that as well. So, Nate, do you want to jump right in then and give us a status update and a demo?
Sure thing. All right. Yeah, so just verbally talking about CKEditor first. Backdrop 127 came out just this past Monday, and Backdrop 127 includes CKEditor 5 now as the new default out-of-box rich text editor. So if you do a fresh install of Backdrop 127 or higher, you're going to get CKEditor 5 out of the box. On existing sites that run any prior version of Backdrop, CKEditor 4 was our default editor since I think Backdrop like 1.1, 1.2. And if you upgrade to 127, your site will continue to stay on CKEditor 4. CKEditor 5 is available as an option for you to switch to, and we'll kind of look at what that process is as part of the demo. So let's get started. So this is a local install of Backdrop 126. So this is before doing the upgrade to 127 where CKEditor 5 exists. So if I go to the modules page, you can see there's just CKEditor 4 right here. And if I were to go and create a piece of content, this is almost entirely out of the box Backdrop 126, but I did add a second text format here for CKEditor 4 demo, and make my screen a little bigger here, just to keep that one intact, and then I'll upgrade this one to CKEditor 5 so we can toggle back and forth between them. But you can see it's the same thing. This is CKEditor 4 in both cases, and they're identically configured. Okay, so now let's pretend that I do the upgrade to Backdrop 127, and this is a Git checkout. So excuse me, I'm just going to switch branches here. So now I've switched over to Backdrop 127, and if I go over to the modules page and look for CKEditor, you can see now in Backdrop 127. Some changes have been made. So CKEditor 4 is now labeled as deprecated when you go to the modules page, and CKEditor 5 is available but not it's available but not enabled. And to be clear, like if I were to visit update.php after doing this change, Backdrop 126, if you're on 126.2 to or 126.3 to 127, there's no database updates between the two of them. So the upgrade process from 126 to 127 is very streamlined. You just do regular core update. There aren't even database updates between this transition. But of course, a lot of people are going to be wanting to move to CKEditor 5. And so after upgrading to 127, turn on the CKEditor 5 module. You can turn off the 4 module, but maybe you'd want to leave it enabled for the time being. So when you turn on CKEditor 5, you now have both 4 and 5 enabled, which doesn't cause any problems by itself. And you get this little notice saying, hey, to upgrade from CKEditor 4 to 5, visit the text editors and formats configuration. So that takes you to this page where you see the text editors that are currently using CKEditor 4. And I'm going to take the out-of-box filtered HTML text format and hit configure on it. And then you get another little message up here saying this format uses 4, which is unsupported. You can upgrade it using this upgrade page. So clicking on this, it then takes you to the form that will upgrade the text format from CKEditor 4 to CKEditor 5. And it gives you any warnings about buttons or configurations or plugins that you might have had enabled on CKEditor 4 that aren't compatible with CKEditor 5. For pretty much all sites, you'll get this warning about the backdrop unlink button going away, and that's because in CKEditor 5 there's no separate link versus unlink button in the toolbar. It's just integrated. The link button provides the ability to unlink as well. So even though this pops up as a button that's going to be removed, that's normal. And also, oh, go ahead.
Can I ask a question here? Izzy was asking today about there's some contrib modules that add things to CKEditor 5 or 4. Mm-hmm. Will those get flagged here too? Do you know?
Yes.
Okay.
And well, maybe actually I should say any CKEditor module that provides a button will get flagged here. But if it provides some functionality with CKEditor that's not tied to a button, it won't be flagged here. This is really about the toolbar upgrade, that it's going to make adjustments to the toolbar to upgrade from one set of buttons to the other. So I'll go ahead and hit confirm upgrade here. And now that does the conversion. So this is now running CKEditor 5. It's asking you to double check your settings to make sure everything is looking as expected. So as part of the upgrade, you'll see this pretty commonly in sites that are upgraded from 4 to 5, in that the link buttons used to be right next to each other. There was link and then there was unlink. And now, because there's only a link button, it's kind of silly that there's a bunch of categories that only have one item in it. So maybe you might want to take that separator out between like link and image, or rearrange your toolbar in some other way that makes sense. CKEditor 5 has effectively all of the same settings as CKEditor 4 for image uploading and file uploading. These two sets of things are identical to what they were in CKEditor 4. They are in vertical tabs now instead of in field sets, but other than that, the settings are identical. And then the option for headings is different in that CKEditor 4 used to just look at the list of headings that were in your limit allowed HTML tags, and it would then make those headings available in the dropdown. But in CKEditor 5, there's now a separate option for enabled headings versus what's in your text format. So that means you could theoretically do something like this where H2 might be allowed in your allowed tags, but H2 isn't actually in your headings dropdown. So it's a slight difference in the way things work. There was some technical reason for why that changed, but I'm not sure what it is off the top of my head. Okay, but I'll go ahead and save this configuration so that filtered HTML is now on CKEditor 5. And as I said, I'm going to leave this other one at CKEditor 4 just for comparison. So let's go over to, oh, oops, I forgot one more thing that I wanted to show here on the toolbar before we leave, and that is that CKEditor 5 has some new default buttons that weren't available in 4, notably the code button, and then also the code block button, both of which I think are pretty dramatic improvements. And so I'm going to rearrange just a little bit more here and put the code block in the headings and the inline code button in place too. So now I'm going to go and create a piece of content. Go ahead.
Yeah, I saw the maximize button. Is it now part of CKEditor, or is it yeah, sort of plug-in or something?
Yeah, so the CKEditor 5 module includes this maximize button, which makes the editor full screen like this. This option was available in 4 as well, like this.
Yeah.
And yeah, Olaf, you were part of that issue, and I think a large reason for the way that why this ended up the way that it did, and that CKEditor 5 doesn't include a maximize button as a part of its build. It does offer maximize as a part of their premium plugin, which is the non-open source version of CKEditor, the one you have to pay a license for. But it was so trivial for us to make a custom plugin that provided the maximize button, and the fact that CKEditor 4 provided it, and there was like a feature disparity there, we decided to go ahead and proceed with including a custom module as part of Backdrop's core and implementation that just maintains that functionality from CKEditor 4.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I didn't recall if we integrated it. Yeah.
Yep. So
Great.
this is the work of Indigo Zelda here to make this one little plugin that provides a maximize feature. Yep.
Thank you for pointing that out, Olaf. I never would have guessed, and I think that's awesome.
I was unaware of that in CKEditor 4. Just noticed it in CKEditor 5.
Yeah, some
I think it's not part of the default configuration, so it's not active in the default configuration, I think.
I think it is. This is the default configuration.
Yeah, it's part. Yeah, but you have to drag it there, I think.
Maybe. But
it wasn't enabled, so and.
But I think it's enabled. So like if let's go to text formats just to clarify this. So if I make a new text format and I say CKEditor 4, so it's enabled by default in the default toolbar, and same for CKEditor 5. Oh, actually, interesting. It's not enabled in the default toolbar in 5. Yeah. This might be an oversight because we tried to make them as similar as possible, but because maximize was added after we tried to make the toolbars consistent, maybe we should change that to make it available by default as well, because it was in 4. So, well, funny. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay. So creating a new post. So we're gonna go back to CKEditor 5, which is on the filtered HTML format. You can see that there's some slight differences just in the styling of the toolbar. But you know what you expect is still all in place. Some things I do like about CKEditor 5 that are new features that we've enabled are things like automatic conversion of markdown, like syntax. So if I were to do like an H3, for example, I could say like hello. So you see I did that with 3 pound symbols, meaning an H3, and then as soon as you say you hit a space, then it converts that into a heading of that size. I do kind of wish that because I only have heading 3, 4, 5 enabled here, I do kind of wish if I just did a single heading, it would use the first available heading, but because H1 isn't available, just a single hash doesn't do anything, but that's fine. It's still nice. My favorite thing is making bulleted lists. So as you see, like I just hit a star, or you can do a hyphen, and it converts that into bulleted lists. Same thing for numbers. If you do 1 dot, you know, then it immediately pops you into an ordered list. See if I can get things. Oh, this is embarrassing. Classic rich text editor not quite working the way that you want it to. Interesting. Just a little issue here between 2 unordered lists. Anyway, I'll move on from that.
How do you get out of ordered lists once you started them?
So what you should do is you just hit return, and if you type a third item, then it opens up for fourth. But then if you want to end the item list, you just hit return again without anything in it.
Like usual, okay.
You know,
I think I got into some issue here where it's like I've got 2 numbered lists right next to each other, and I caused a problem there. Since it looks like I'm still inside of the list here for some reason. Let's see. I also, yeah, the introduction of the code button, I'm really excited about that, and code format. So if you wanted to say like this is, I mean, it's not PHP code, but you can do block sections of code without any additional configuration. In source mode, it does what you would expect. It uses a code tag for inline tags, and then a code tag plus a pre-tag for blocks of code. This is kind of the standardized way of representing blocks of code on the internet. So I'm excited about those, mostly because the main place I use CKEditor is on the docs website, which has a lot of code samples. So I'm glad to have this as a out-of-box feature in CKEditor 5.
Oh yeah, that's great.
A big thing about CKEditor 5 that is different is the introduction of the balloon interface. And the balloon interface is, I'll show it in a second here. So I'm going to create a link. This still opens the link dialog that we're all familiar with. It's identical to the one that is provided by CKEditor 4. I mean, it's actually the same link dialog, just integrated with 5. So it opens up this dialog. We do have support for classes and things. You know, opening and targeted windows and stuff like this. All of these extra properties, so the same as 4. And this is the balloon UI that I was talking about, that when I click on a link, it kind of shows you this preview of what the link is, and then the ability to unlink. So you remember how the unlink button disappeared out of the toolbar? This is where it went. It goes into the balloon UI instead of, or the balloon toolbar instead of into the main toolbar. So unlinking is just like that. Control Z to get that back. And if you want to edit your link, then you click the pencil and it switches to the dialog again. This is pretty different than CKEditor 5 out of the box, like not integrated with Backdrop, and it's also different than the integration with Drupal. And that Drupal really kind of embraced the bubble UI, and when you click edit, all of the editing interface is done within the bubble. But in the Backdrop integration, we decided to stick with the modal dialogues because for one, we have things like this upload file capability, and we would have lost that had we switched to the balloon only functionality. Also, it gets a little bit overwhelming with a form this big inside of a balloon. And this interface is much more modifiable by contrib modules without having to like get into the weeds of how CKEditor works. So we stuck with modals, even though the balloon interface is also like available. We tend to move towards dialogues in the places where we were using dialogues before. Let's see. Last thing, image handling is the same as CKEditor 4 as well. So if you click the image button, it pops open a modal. You can select from a library, or you can upload an image, and it pops it into the UI. There are some like slight differences in the way that it presents things, but again, here's the bubble UI. I guess the way that alignment works is different in that in CKEditor 4, you would use the paragraph alignment buttons when you wanted to align an image, but you can see here those are grayed out. And instead, if you want to align an image in CKEditor 5, you use the balloon editor, the balloon toolbar. So if you want to center an image, then you use this option here. Also, we do have the ability to specify, this is kind of interesting, that the alt text, this is what I'm talking about, where the balloon interface was used in CKEditor 5 to do a lot of the in-depth editing, and this is just the normal image handling support for adding an alt text, and that added the alt text. But if you click the pencil icon, as with links, it switches to Backdrop's modal UI for editing the image, and that alt text like moves between both UIs. So you can use the alt text here inside of the modal UI, or you can use the alt text here within the balloon editor. It doesn't really matter. Just two different ways of getting at the same thing. There's also
quick
yep.
question. I noticed in the image formats dialog, it lets you specify a destination directory for uploads, and that strikes me, and this is probably out of our control, but I'm just kind of curious. Like that strikes me as a little bit in conflict with the upload images you specify in a content type. And I'm just kind of curious, do we have any control of that? Does the user have any control of it? What's the precedence? How those things?
Yeah, so that's this option here, upload directory for images. So that happens when, yeah, like if I were to hit the image button here and then like upload an image, then yeah, this image is put into the inline images directory. So you can see the path right there. Yeah, that does get into a little bit of a discrepancy between overall content type configuration and text format configuration, because text formats can be used in places other than content types. You can't even use a token in there that says like use the content type, because this this directory could be used for uploading images in this text format inside of a views configuration or a content type configuration. Anywhere where there's a rich text editor, it's going to allow this uploading of inline images. And so, yeah, there's that disconnect where text format doesn't really know and can't really care about a text or the content type on which it's being used.
there's no way to specify, right? I'm a little worried that the inline images directory is gonna get like filled with vast numbers of hard to distinguish things.
Oh, it totally will. And it does, yes. And because, I mean, it, yeah, it's a decision about the way that you want to build your site out, that if you're going to be using inline images, that directory is going to be absolutely full. I mean, you can always disable it, and then this is like image uploads also. So it is possible. Here, I'm going to save this with image uploads turned off. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to hit save. Just for demonstration purposes. So you can still have an image button, but have image uploads turned off, and then it gives you only the browser and not the ability to upload. So that same image is here from before. So in theory, if you wanted to be strict about things, you could have an image field like this. Actually, I think that this will work. And then go up here and then hit image, and then that image you just uploaded is now there, and it's inside of the content type specific directory you wanted. So you could kind of treat this as like the equivalent of insert module without needing to do anything. That if you wanted to just have like attachments down below, and then you wanted to immediately use those inside of the rich text editor, you could do it that way to like keep your directories well structured.
I like it.
Okay, so there we go.
So
Oh, this is
I have a
this is
question.
double showing because this is the image like in the image field, and then this is the image again inside of the rich text editor. Go ahead.
So I've actually, real quick, I've done this on a couple sites and I just disable the image field itself from showing anywhere, and then
Mhm.
that's not a problem. But so my question is, in theory, could we do this on any field? Like you could just add like, I don't know if there's a CKEditor plugin that adds dates to stuff, and then you can have a date field and just import the date field.
In the rich text editor? Like,
Right. So a big problem with a lot of the GUI tools like shoot, what are they? Like Gutenberg or those tools is that they don't have structured data. So I was wondering if it's possible to like have your structured data fields and then just embed those things into your content.
I mean, yes, it's possible, but there's no support for that like out of the box, because
Right.
this is only embedding files and not other
Mhm.
fields. But yeah, you could theoretically make a button that did anything. You could work with the similar um, interface that we have here, where it's like, it opens up a modal dialog, and then you could have this just be a normal backdrop form. That tends to make that reduces a lot of the CKEditor specific code, opening a backdrop modal, and then when you hit insert, the backdrop the CKEditor plugin would then take the posted values and then insert it into the rich text content somehow.
Okay. Cool.
I think it's available for Backdrop. There was a module called Insert where you basically could have like an image field where you did it, and then on the image field you got a button, a link that said Insert, and you could insert it into the content, so it was still managed as a structured field, but you could insert it anywhere in the content, which I like. So I hate images being uploaded in the text editor because I mean it's so messy, and you can't you can't pick them up in views if you want to either. So I like that module.
Can you drag images in?
Oh yeah, yep, you can drag images in. So let me see. Let me get an image here. here we go. Okay, so like let's say this is just you know, from my desktop, and then if I drag in an image, yeah, it does oh, except I just turned off image uploading, so it gives you this little warning, and then it'll just wipe it back out. Okay, let me go turn that back on, because that's gonna throw me off. Okay, so enable image uploading again. Okay, now with it turned on, now I can drag in the image, and it will upload. There we go. So I put that little green check in there, and this does like that integrates fully with Backdrop properly. So if I go to my, so there's the image it just uploaded, and if I go to my manage files, there's that image that that I dragged in.
You can't see the image from that interface there, can you?
You know, no, we don't have the well, this is the manage files page, and so this shows not just images but other stuff as well. But you could modify this view if you wanted to include a preview.
I have done that on basically every site I've ever made.
Yeah, I could see that being very useful.
Just have it show a thumbnail or something.
Yeah. Let's see. There's one other thing I wanted to, well, a couple of other things, but one main thing that I wanted to point out before we move on to Tiny MCE, and that's compatibility with existing content. That some content may have existed prior to switching to CKEditor 5, and CKEditor 5 is a bit more opinionated about the way that it formats content and what happens when you encounter that kind of opinionated content, or sorry, loose content conflicts with CKEditor 5's opinionated way of formatting content. And the easiest way to demonstrate this, I think, is with content like this that doesn't include any paragraph tags. So this is actually in the raw HTML text format, so there's no editor at all. But if I switch to CKEditor 4, watch what will happen here. CKEditor 4 just kind of eats the line breaks, and so it puts a p tag around everything, but it puts all of that all on one line, because when it read that quote HTML, it doesn't understand that each new line should be a separate paragraph like it is here. But one nice thing about CKEditor 5 is because CKEditor 5 is highly opinionated about the way that it formats HTML, and it's not just with things that don't have p tags like this, but because it's highly opinionated, we built in a safety check for existing content that makes it so that when you upgrade from 4, which is less opinionated, to 5, which is highly opinionated, if CKEditor 5 encounters content that it's going to reformat just by loading the editor, when you switch to the editor or when you hit edit on a piece of content that it's going to reformat, it doesn't turn on the editor right away. It gives you this little warning saying activating CKEditor 5 will reformat the content of this field. Review the content carefully after activating. And then if you say, okay, that's fine, and then you want to activate it, then yes, it still ends up with the same problem as CKEditor 4, because neither one knows how to deal with converting the new line filter into p tags. But at least just by if you were an existing user and you just hit edit on a piece of content that was using CKEditor 5, and previously it was using CKEditor 4, just viewing the content and then hitting save isn't going to lose your content. It's like a little extra safety check to make it so that it's possible for editors to come in, modify the rest of the fields on the node without touching this one, and for it not to be mangled just by the act of loading CKEditor 5. Does anyone have questions on that? I know it's a little bit of a heady concept.
I do a little bit. So I'm delighted that there's a warning that comes in there. I'm curious if I'm sorry, my monitor just lost power, so I got distracted with what I was saying. I'm curious if there's any way to preview what's going to happen without saving it. Like if you hit the preview button, will that show you?
Yeah, I wish there was. Like when you activate the editor, I guess yes. Okay, so first of all, you're going to see that it was modified just in the rich text editor itself. So that's going to be tip number one, that something changed. But yeah, you can also hit the preview button down here, and you can see that it's changed here as well. So yeah, you've got two options there
And
for.
you still haven't saved it, so you can always just cancel and
Yep. Yep. And yeah, cancel or just leave the page. And yeah, there you go. I haven't changed it there either. But I do wish there was a way
All
for
right, so
you, before you activated the editor, it would show you what was going to change. But I considered going down the rabbit hole of that, but that would basically mean probably showing users the raw HTML and then a diffing interface. And I'm like, although that's great for power users, for the normal user, I think that that would just be super confusing and
Mhm.
intimidating for them to be faced with a diff interface.
What
yeah, well,
about,
is there something though? I mean, we're given the messages saying that things might change. Short of the diff interface, is there any way for them, like even if they miss something, is there any way to kind of tell if something has changed? Is that what the
Oh,
pre?
well, I mean, you could always, create a revision. That would be the smart thing to do, right? And then you can always go back to the previous revision. And if you have diff module available on your site, then you could use a diff here to see what changed between the two revisions.
This preview, I almost never use preview personally, so I forget. Does preview show to you in the front end theme?
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah, okay, because that would be the big difference to me is if there's things, because the front end theme stuff is not going to show up the uh in the preview format in the inside of CKEditor itself in the preview. You have to go to
Right. Yeah. To really see the front end theme. Yep.
where it might have eaten like some divs or something that you really need for things to work on your page.
Yep. And that brings me to yet another point about CKEditor 5, in that CKEditor 4 used an iframe for the editor contents here, but CKEditor 5 does not. It just uses a div in the parent of the page. And so that means that any styling that you have in your admin theme applies to the content of the rich text editor. This is kind of a blessing and a curse in that the 7 theme provides pretty decent styling for a lot of stuff, like code, for example, that your front end theme might not do. But it's a curse because now you've got the admin theme CSS and the front end theme CSS both trying to target the editor at the same time. And you can end up needing to reset a lot of the CSS that the admin theme is adding to make it so your front end theme CSS actually shows inside of the editor. Yeah, Izzy, you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to go back to commenting on your suggestion there that sites might enable the revisions and the diff module when they're making a conversion from CKEditor 4 to CKEditor 5. That sounds like a really good tip to safeguard what's going on a site.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and just, I don't know, Tim, do you want me to stop so that you can talk about Tiny MCE?
It's okay. Go ahead for another couple minutes.
Okay, so to demonstrate this, I'm going to install diff. Turn it on. Okay, now we're going to go back to that piece of content that I've been modifying. Page without p tags and hit revisions. So diff module adds this button. So now I can see the difference between the two of them. I wonder, did I did change something there, right? That's where the p tag got added. Yeah, so that one has the separate lines, and this one has it all on one line. Well, a little failure here on diff module. Oh, there we go. Oh, sorry, I guess I just don't know how it works. I guess I have to click first. So yeah, so there we go. So this is the rendered version, and then this is like the HTML version of it. So you can see that the lines were changed.
Cool.
Question.
We could keep taking questions here, or we could jump to the tiny MCE. Do you want to, Sarvashi, do you have a quick question?
Well, it's about tiny MCE. If you have a Drupal site you're importing, what's going to happen with the formatting of your content? If you've used tiny MCE in Drupal 7, and is there tiny MCE for Backdrop?
That leads us
segue.
That leads us right into my demo of tiny MCE.
Good.
So, I mean, really quickly jump in, Nate, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the upgrade process for CKEditor it did get pretty hairy at sometimes, and Indigo Zella, who was involved in helping Nate quite a bit, sort of as a proof of concept, wanted to see, could we do something else? And she basically ported the tiny MCE module from, I think, from Drupal 7 to Backdrop, and has been, even continuing to play with that. So, and released it. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. So I don't know what the upgrade path is, and I'm not going to demo an upgrade from Drupal 7 but I am going to demonstrate that we have tiny MCE for Backdrop. So I have a Drupal 7 site, or a Backdrop site. I've downloaded and enabled the tiny MCE
Just
editor.
a correction there. It wasn't a port from. It wasn't a port. It was created for Backdrop using the tiny MCE library, so it's completely new. No Drupal 7 code.
Thank you. Please, anybody correct me if I make mistakes, because I'm not an expert on this. But yes, that's Indigo Zella has made that point several times. This is actually not a port of the Drupal 7 module. So I don't know how you'd have to ask her, or maybe somebody else here knows how that would affect the upgrade process. I don't know if it would or not. In terms of coming from Drupal 7, it'd be a great question to ask in the forum. So we've enabled the module. I guess it probably doesn't even matter, but I also have my sample animal content that I use in a lot of my demos. I think that's a little bit irrelevant, but the sample content would have been made using it would have been, it should have CKEditor 5 because this is a brand new site, right? So this is not an upgrade. So if I go down here, it's using the basic text editor, which the basic text editor is using CKEditor 5. We can see that right here. So we can switch to tiny MCE by opening this up, and these are the text editors that are available to us. And I can switch to tiny MCE. One of the differences between CKEditor and tiny MCE is with CKEditor, you can edit your toolbar right here in the text editor. If we switch to tiny MCE, we don't have that choice, but we have 2 or 3 default toolbars that we can use, and the ability to create our own custom one. And I'll show you that in a second. I'm not a complete expert here, and people can jump in if I'm missing something, but let me first just show, let's just save this with the default editor. And again, I'll show you how to customize that in a minute, and just go back. Go back to one of our pieces of content now. So this is now using tiny MCE, right? It just automatically switched over. The basic editor, I'm correct, right? This is, well, it's got the unlink, so we know it's not, we know it's not.
On 5.
Yeah, CKEditor 5. So I'm going to go
remarkably
back and
consistent default configuration between all three modules toolbars that they all have the
So-
same buttons.
So the small editor option, if we go back and look at that, I'll just refresh this page. Is just a really simple toolbar with just a couple of things, and then there's the full toolbar. Which also has this, it gets very complicated. It also has this whole drop down up here. And again, you can turn this on or off, but it's got things like emojis and code samples. Do we have anything for I love this feature, and that you can create accordions in. I'm going to go ahead and just show this. We don't have this in CKEditor. Do we built in?
Nope.
No.
I think there is something like it, but it's a plugin and it's not shipped with core.
Well, there in the Drupal 7 world, I think there was. Do we have it in Backdrop? An accordion plugin for CKEditor?
Yes.
We
Yes,
do.
we have it.
It exists
Yes,
already.
but it's
Okay.
not. But it's only for CKEditor 4, and it seems
Okay.
to be very difficult to adapt it for version 5.
Okay, so just for those who aren't familiar with this feature, there you go. You can create sort of accordions right here in your text editor, and then if I save that, we have that. Can I? Is there any settings on this for like if I wanted to default? Probably there. Maybe if I close it here, then it'll be closed by default. Yep. So I love this feature, and it's got me looking seriously at Tiny MCE as an option. Let's actually, before I move on and customize it, is there anything else that people that have looked at Tiny MCE would want to call out in this menu, either just in word count? Let's see, we'll look at that. So I think I glanced at that. It's got a little word count feature.
I'm amazed at how full featured this is. Like your shell said that it didn't have a UI. I don't know what that means. Like, what is the UI that it doesn't have?
That was the Drupal 7 version that she made, not this version.
Okay.
Well,
It's very powerful, and I feel like I should acknowledge the fact that there are big debates in the content management world about the pros and cons of providing this kind of power to end users. I think a lot of corporate sites or larger sites, really, you don't want to give your editors this much power, because you don't want lots of different people getting very innovative about their content when you have a really tight brand and design. But I think for the average blog, individual building their own blog, they love this kind of control, and they don't want to have to mess around with that. So this is you're giving your editors a lot of power here.
Now, it would be interesting because you can switch back and forth between CKEditor 5 and Tiny MCE. If you use Tiny MCE and create some of these weird exotic things like the accordion, and then you go back and you switch to CKEditor 5 and open it, will CKEditor 5 clobber that, or just live with it?
Yeah, probably.
Good question.
It's not going to like it. How badly it treats it, that would be experimentation. So I mean, I think there's a benefit of like being able. So if your editor, certainly you could have a CKEditor 5 and you could have a Tiny MCE editor, and you could allow your editors to choose which one they choose, but you would prefer that they not switch back and forth, because the content is, it's going to hurt the content. And if they do switch back and forth, they're going to have to do some reformatting. So we're just about out of time. And I think the important thing that I haven't showed you, and the big difference with CKEditor 5 and Tiny MCE, and this was, I think, those of us who worked in Drupal 7 are used to this. is that you manage the different profiles, the toolbars for Tiny MCE in its own menu. So these are the 3 default ones that come with CK or Tiny MCE. These don't have any like edit button, but you can add a custom profile, and so we can do the demo profile. This toolbar is whether you want that toolbar at the top. No, I don't still have that open. So you can just turn on or off that toolbar. That was the one with all the drop downs. And then you have these are all your options for dragging and dropping, right? So you can, drag up these other tools if you want to, and create your own, add emojis here and add our own toolbar. And now we would go to our basic text editor, and we would switch from the full here to our demo profile. We'll save that, edit this content, and look at that. Now we have emojis. Here we go. So any questions about that? We're just about out of time. So I think there's not a detailed dive into Tiny MCE, but I think at least shows you, how functioning it is, what it's got available, and also just like how to, that thing about editing the toolbars might not be obvious to everybody. But go ahead.
Because you've changed, no longer have a accordion in your new profile. The accordion still works, but you can't edit.
We're still in Tiny MCE, so that didn't break the accordion. You're right. I turned off the toolbar that created the accordion, but I think it still understands what it is, right? Or
right.
Yeah, the accordion tool is no longer here, but that didn't break the accordion itself. It just it would be harder to add a new accordion without that toolbar.
Right.
Right. Because once it's added, it would be in HTML, right? So you could look at the raw HTML.
Yeah, I don't have a source.
No,
this also, by the way, does have full text editor. I want to stress that.
Well, under the formatting options, it has raw. Lower down under the format.
Yeah, I could do. Yes, I can definitely do that.
So there it is, summary.
Right. Yeah, it's this details.
Details.
This is what does it, and then there's the summary and the details. So
if you don't want to make another one, you could just copy that and edit.
Yeah, you could just code your own accordions with Tiny MCE, even if it's not in the menu. I don't know. I imagine that there's some filter options where you could.
I think there were these angle brackets in the toolbar, and you can switch there to source mode, I think. If you go back to the content, edit the content.
Sure, let's do that. Leave that open, content. Okay, what did you want to do?
And now the toolbar, look at the angle brackets.
Look, I'm saying it again. Look
at the side of the full screen.
Right next to the expand, right to the left.
Next one.
Yeah.
To the left.
To the
one
left.
to the left.
To the left.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time hearing.
This
one?
No, the one in the middle.
No.
The less than
one.
sign and greater than sign.
Right. To the right.
The one that looks like bigger than.
Yeah.
Here.
That one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
source.
Push it.
So sorry. So sorry. Okay, that was embarrassing. Thank you, Olaf. Okay, so just showing that this is the view source. This looked to me more like a code thing, which source code, I guess. It looked to me like an insert code. And I was having a hard time hearing you. Okay. Thank you. Okay, any other questions or anything else anybody else wants to share? Is anybody using Tiny this module on a live site yet? No? Okay.
No.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
No.
I'm using it on a few.
I have Tiny MCE on a Drupal site.
Sure.
How hard is it to add a custom style to the to the style list?
27 active installs. I don't know what that means yet, but
I do have a CKEditor 5 question now that I've upgraded a site.
well, okay. If Nate is still here, I assume he is. Maybe he can handle that. A question I had was about CKEditor 5 that might be related to what somebody just asked about Tiny MCE. Was CKEditor had that ability to add these custom styles, right? Somebody just brought that up. And I didn't see that in CKEditor 5 or in Tiny MCE. So if anybody knows the answer to either of those, speak up. But otherwise, Joseph, go ahead with, or no,
Were
who
you
was it?
asking-
Justin.
Were you asking about adding styles to CKEditor 5?
Yes,
No,
custom styles.
In Tiny MCE.
Oh, okay.
Because I didn't see the option in the UI.
Right. I think you asked it about Tiny MCE, and I'm basically saying I have the same question about CKEditor 5. I knew
Yeah,
how to do that in
CKEditor 5,
CKEditor.
it
Go
does
ahead.
it does have it. It's a toolbar button. I just didn't drag in. It's not enabled by
Okay.
default.
Okay.
Yep.
I like adding a dot button style to on all of my sites, and then you can just select a link and select that style, and it applies your button highlighting or button formatting to the link.
Nice. Yeah. That would be a good demo someday. Okay. Any other last, or Justin, did you have a question about CKEditor 4? 5?
Well, yeah, I discovered on one of these old sites that all of the content in it is basically unformatted. So every node that I go to gives me the editor, the warning about activating CKEditor 5 will reformat the content, which is good, I guess, but it's actually going to make it look better. So I'm going to want to do this for the entire site, and I don't want to do it a node at a time.
Anybody have an answer for that? Is there a way to?
I can't think of one off the top of my head because the process that CKEditor uses to format the content is non-trivial. Because it does a bunch of stuff. Not only does it potentially reorder your tags, but it also like indents your HTML and adds spacing and all kinds of things. So I don't think there's a way to make it do it outside of the editor.
All right,
You
that's
can't.
all right. Nobody's going to notice. I'm
Could
not
that be-
going to worry about it.
Could that be created as a views bulk operation to go through a whole stack of nodes and execute the operation?
Yeah,
If-
it could.
maybe.
It could.
Well, but it would have to load the page, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, you would need to
So-
re-implement the entire parsing algorithm, yeah, in order to make it a views bulk operation.
Okay,
Because all the code's in JavaScript right now, and you need to make a PHP version of it.
I have a totally harebrained idea that may or may not be just cause more suffering, but you could use simple test to load all the pages on your site and then press the save button.
Okay. That seems like a great idea to go out on. Okay, let's wrap up this meeting.
I actually don't think it makes any difference now that I look at it, but
Okay. Let's go ahead and wrap up this meeting. We have our weekly dev meeting coming up afterwards. So anybody that would like, please hang around for that. I'm going to stop my share and stop the recording. Bye, everybody.